This is a view from the outside of the dorm. I'm kind of up there about 4 floors up, maybe 5. I think I was on the 5th floor, 5 floors up there on the far left. But this is our little courtyard, and you got kind of this almost borderline Soviet-era looking statue down here at the bottom as people kind of holding like the little communist books and stuff like that. It's a little weird. All right, next picture. So this is just sort of a view of the campus, sort of reasonably normal looking. All right, next picture. View kind of over the little quad there at Shanghai University. Next picture. This is me with my teacher from the international exchange there. So that was who took us on the trip. All right, next picture. This is about a month later after that. This is in Beijing. After the time that I spent there in Shanghai, all my friends went home. All 18 of them, well, with a few little exceptions. There's actually one other guy that had an internship in Beijing at the same time I was there teaching English in Beijing, but I rarely saw him. It was really kind of difficult to arrange very many meetings because he was really busy. So I was kind of, for all intents and purposes, on my own with me and my year's worth of Chinese studies here living with this family. So I go to, I have no idea what to expect. It was probably one of the single scariest experiences of my life, hopping on that plane. It was the kind of, the teacher you just saw, she kind of walked me to security and then is very, very stoic woman, has never really, and she likes me fine, but she's very stoic. It was the kind of thing that she sort of breaks character and she gives me a big hug before I get on, go through security and everything. She's like, all right, well, goodbye, you're on your own, and that's when it hit me. I'm going to be in China for the rest of the time that I'm here, for like almost 6 weeks. It's just going to be me. Just going to be me. And it's going to be kind of a sink or swim situation. I'm going to teach English, something I've never really done, using a language that I'm not ridiculously proficient in. Let's see how it goes. I didn't really know what the living conditions were going to be like. I knew it was a very well-to-do family. In any case, this is the family's living room here, the house that I lived in. Very, very nice furniture, very, very nice accommodations. It was Alex, an 11-year-old. Li Hui was the mom. Yue was the dad. And then there was the mom's sister also living with us, who I call Dai, which kind of means like older sister aunt. They've got very, very complicated terminology for their family members. In any case, that was the little bunch that lived here. And the room kind of back through that particular doorway was my room. This is the table where we ate all of our meals together. So very nice living situation. All right, next picture. Here I am with Alex, and he looks just thrilled. He likes me, I promise. But this is like about as happy as I could find him in any of the pictures that he took with me. He ended up just kind of wow. Here we are at Tiantan, which is kind of a famous Beijing locale. Alex and I. Man, he looks bummed. All right, next picture. Here we go. He looks a little happier there, I guess. We're eating kind of some of his favorite snacks. That's a chicken foot. A chicken foot that I have there in my mouth. This is the sort of thing that he volunteered to go get us snacks. This was later in our day here at Tiantan. He's like, oh, let's go get something. I know exactly what it is that you'll like. So he runs to a nearby store, he grabs these, and he comes back with this foot. I'm like, wait, are you serious? And that was like his go-to thing. Whenever we go to the little corner store, it was the sort of deal that we make the little run down and get junk food. Mom's never gonna know. All right, we get chicken food. That was his go-to. Or pigskin. He also liked these little pigskin. They were very, very spicy, kind of gelatinous. You'd sort of suck it off the bone. We sat there and we had junk food, partied it up. Mom
Don't listen to me.
Okay, this is a little better example here. This sign over the top of them says something about warmly celebrating the 90th anniversary of the Communist Party. And they've got the little hammer and sickle over here to the side. That was the sort of thing that I actually got kind of bizarrely used to. Where I know that you drive down Frederick here sometimes and they'll have all the Heartland banners. I'll say, oh yeah, Heartland celebrating excellence, or yeah, St. Joe Proud. You drive down the street in Beijing, in Shanghai, especially around the 90th anniversary of communism, they'd have those kind of banners and they would all be hammer and sickle. Or you'd be going through the subway, for instance. You get off the subway and then it'd be all these little happy children in their school uniforms like, ah, and you got the hammer and sickle, big red stuff, so. A little disconcerting whenever you first get there because we're supposed to kind of be trained to think of that as almost like an archetype of evil, that you've got the hammer and sickle symbol representing communism, kind of the opposite of capitalism, bad. There it is, it's all over the place, you have to get used to it. I think this is at the zoo. Maybe we were going to see pandas or something. On the way to go see pandas. All right, next picture. This is a saga. Okay, so during my time in Beijing, we had a lot of chances to go on little adventures. I spent a lot of time teaching Alex, the little 11-year-old boy, but then on the weekends and whatever else, we'd go hang out with family friends, and then a lot of times, prior to doing what we were actually going to do, I would know what was going on, kind of, because of the language barrier. So I had heard that we were going to go hang out with some family friends, or something like that. We were going to go see family, we were going to go to the lake. I heard something about Hebei, which is a nearby province. I didn't really know that at the time, but I was like, oh, all right, let's go. That sounds real fun. So then one morning, we kind of loaded the car, and we're getting ready to go. It's just really, really, really early, and we just started driving. We're going. We ended up going like 200 miles or something like that from Beijing itself, out into the boondocks. And it's a little group of us, a little ragtag bunch, including a girl that they'd invited along because of a little language misunderstanding. They decided that I was in love with this girl, so they had invited her along to go with us. So we're nowhere with this girl, and it's the family, and kind of this aunt that lived with the family for some reason that I didn't really understand, out in the middle of nowhere. And we start pulling off into, we pull off the highway, and it's kind of a little more boondocky highway, it's sort of craggy. And then, before I know it, a little cop, the cherries go up, we got the cops after us, which is horrifying, because here I am in China. The cops are after us, and what's going to happen? I'm not going to understand what's going on. So then we get pulled over. The sister starts screaming. This aunt that lived with us is like, freaking out. I'm like, oh no. And then it ended up being their family friends. I'm kind of revealing this to you as it happened to me. It's a little helter-skelter. It's because I was like, what's going on? I don't know. So there's the cops pull us over. The cops end up being the family friends. In any case, we end up following the cop. He was a good guy. We follow the cop into this tiny little village off the beaten path in the middle of nowhere, China, in Hebei province, by this big wetlands area called Baiyangjian, which is, I guess, supposed to be kind of famous, but it sort of looked like the Everglades. And in any case, we're back in the middle of nowhere in this little itty-bitty village. And like I said, in the big city, in Shanghai, in Beijing, me being a white person makes a scene. Just being the foreign white guy, like, oh wow, where did this come from? Who are you? Like, you make a scene in Starbucks in Beijing. Oh, look at that. You're a foreigner. In this little town, people will lose their minds. What is going on? There is a foreigner in this little village, and I was just the talk of the town. And it was the sort of thing that I step out of the car, and immediately the family that we'd come to visit were like, who is this and why is he here? Now my Chinese was just good enough that I could be like, oh hey, I'm Taylor from America. And they were just thrilled with it. They thought it was great. So then I was this little kind of a party trick all of a sudden that they brought this, oh, it's fun, it talks, cool. Unfortunately, I'm out here in the middle of nowhere in this village with the family. So it's kind of a complicated social situation as is, where if you're going with sort of this family that you barely know to meet their kind of extended family and whatever else, like that's complicated. Now, I could barely understand anything that these people said. My Chinese was getting pretty good at this point, but their Chinese was kind of like rural China Chinese. I don't think it was technically a different dialect, but it was just really kind of slurred and fast and muddy and kind of dialect-ish. Well, I don't know what you're doing there, Bob. I kind of have had the discussion with my dad a couple times, and that tends to be his little go-to, his go-to little time. Oh, how's it going? The way that people would talk was just not standard. So I couldn't understand anything that was going on. It was horrifying. It was really, really, really scary. It was the place that the language barrier was notably the strongest. I just couldn't understand anything that was going on. So we show up, and it's some of the family that I'd met previously that was kind of from Beijing. The mom's grandma and grandpa, notably, and I kind of bonded with this grandpa over some other goings-on. So then he ended up helping me in this particular situation by translating what the kind of boondocks people were saying into more standard Chinese. He couldn't translate it into English for me, he didn't speak English at all, but he was looking out for me. So he translated into more standard Chinese, and through him I found out that, oh, well, we're going to go on like a boat ride or something, and we're going to go eat in some hotel. Like, I didn't know I was going to eat in a hotel, all right, and then that ended up being exactly what happened. So we went on a boat ride, and we had dinner in a hotel and whatever else. We ended up going fishing, and it ended up being one of the single coolest adventures of my time that I was in China. Let's go ahead and go to the next picture. This is actually, well, I kind of messed that up. This is me riding on a motorcycle through this little village, where right after I'd shown up, it was one of the very first things that happened. They started asking me, well, do you want to go on a walk? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. And they're like, well, do you want to bring your stuff? And I was like, I don't know that I need to bring my stuff. But thank goodness I actually had taken my camera and sort of stuffed it in my pocket, because apparently go on a walk was go on this wild motorcycle trailer ride. And they have this motorcycle that they converted to have a little trailer on the back of it. And the guy just starts taking and throwing grass into the back of the trailer and then indicates that he wanted me to hop in the back. So then Alex and I and this girl I supposedly loved all hopped in the back. So then here we are cruising down the streets of this little village, and you can see that it looks quite different than Beijing or Shanghai out here in very, very rural China. Life is hard in rural China. That's my knee, the giant glowing white radiant. Alright, next picture. This is the house that they all stayed in. It's kind of back in this little gated thing. It's really one of the nicer houses in the entire village. And this is kind of the main road that ran through the village here that we kind of cruised down. All right, next picture. This is where we ended up heading. And, oh, it's kind of washed out. But we hop out of the trailer, and then we kind of come down here to the edge of the lake, where he's got his own personal little lily pad farm. This is like the mom's cousin or something like that we just all of a sudden hop in the motorcycle trailer with. And then he's going down there and he's going to load up this boat. All right, next picture. So then this is a picture of the lily pad farm and the boat down there in kind of this little Evergladesy area by Undine. Really, really, really beautiful place. And then later we actually took this boat. I was able to kind of row the boat or try to row it. It was really, really tricky. Out around the lily pads, and he sort of used a stick and pushed us in there. We picked a bunch of these lily pads. There's kind of the pads, there's the pods and the flowers. We picked the flowers because they were pretty. We picked the pads because you can dry them out and make tea. And we picked these pods because you can kind of pick out these little berries that are buried down in the pods. You can sort of rip it open. It's like a little sponge. And you can bite the wax coating off of there and eat those. So then we were sort of back in there eating those little berry things. All right, next. This is Alex again with a spear. Trying to show that boys will be boys. I'm really glad he didn't hurt himself. That was an awesome spear. There's a dead fish in the water, and he was trying to harpoon the dead fish just to show that he could do it. He couldn't do it. All right, next. This is the entire family that I hang out with. The people that I could understand were the woman in green and the guy in blue here. Everybody else on that boat was unintelligible. All right, next. These are kind of a borderline perfect example of toilets. Like a lot of times what they'd have out in public. This was at the restaurant that we stopped at. Now I'm going to say that this is sort of middle of the road quality. I saw worse than this. I saw a lot better than this, where they had really, really nice squat toilets where you get kind of like a little stainless steel basin and you kind of just foot here, and go to town. The problem with this is that it was almost always a bad day for you if you decided that you were going to use a squat toilet. It was never that you were just out in public and decided, you know what sounds like fun, that'd be a great idea, I'm going to go to the squat toilet. It was always that you were in turmoil. I can't say that I state that like for everyone, but at least in my own personal experience, I have decided that my stomach conditions, at least for the first couple weeks in any given area, the first couple weeks in Shanghai, the first couple weeks in Beijing, were such that they were just always irregular. That here in the States, it tends to be a state of perfectly normal or a state of irregular. I think you know which particular irregular I'm referring to. Now, in China, especially during these particular time periods, it was a gradient. It was 1 to 10 of how irregular it was. Where you wake up in the morning and you just say to yourself, I decided that my degree of irregularity is merely a 4 on this particular morning. It's going to be a great day. Other days you wake up, And you would decide very quickly, I'm 9, and I need